has a new book, apparently called The Christmas Sweater, which sounds really nifty because you think, ooh, we can always do with a good Christmas book. There's only one problem. Glenn Beck, of course, is a Mormon. Now, it's a problem because Mormons aren't Christians, and that means they, like anybody else who's never repented and put their trust in Jesus Christ, they will die in their sins, and they will go to hell because they don't have the right Jesus. Now, Glenn Beck happened to appear on a Christian talk show, and we're just going to have to give the host the benefit of the doubt that he didn't realize that Glenn Beck is actually a Mormon, because he just seemed to think it was pretty groovy that Glenn the Mormon wrote a Christmas book.
I was a hard-living, hard-drinking. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I did drugs most of my life. I was, in the 90s, I hit bottom. I lost my family and suicidal, and doctor gave me 6 months to live, and I turned my life around.
You don't mean it.
Yeah.
You were all those things.
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. And in 2000, I dedicated my life to the Lord, and He has been great to me. He has been so profoundly good.
Well, what a transformation!
Oh, yeah.
That's a miracle of God's grace.
Yeah, it is amazing. Totally amazing.
That's marvelous.
Thank you, sir.
Well, no, it's not, because he's not saved. He's not a Christian. The guy couldn't have known that he's actually a Mormon. This is very telling, though. This is very interesting. Remember, people can look really different outwardly. They can get changed, they can get cleaned up, they can become sober, they can get dry, but that doesn't mean that they're actually saved. You can wash the outside of the cup pretty clean, but the inside is still dirty. And as we watch this interview with Glenn Beck, boy, the emotionalism that the guy, I mean, he's really feeling it. And that should remind us, Christian, it's not about feelings. It's not about emotions. It's not about going, oh, my heart really, oh, I was so moved at that. Oh, don't get me wrong. We have feelings. We're not rocks. We actually have emotions. But those emotions must come from truth. If we don't have solid theology underneath it, the emotions are feelings and nothing more than feelings.
The last chapter is called How It Begins, and it's just how at the end of things, if you really understand the real gift of Christmas, if you understand that it's all about the atonement, now everything begins.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for you to read that.
Don't read it, because they don't understand the atonement. Remember, Mormonism basically says that Jesus dying on a cross makes it possible for you to get your own planet where you can have your own wives and create your own spirit babies, but it does not forgive sins. Have to be so careful when talking to a Mormon. Boy, I'll tell you something. Ron wrote a great book called Reasoning from the Scriptures with Mormons. Now, the only problem with it, love the book, Ron, you just can't reason with them because they take the Scriptures and they just kind of go, yeah, a little bit. Glenn, talking about the atonement, but they don't understand that the atonement actually paid for sins. The Mormon believes that if you will accept Jesus or ask him into your heart or what to get baptized, I guess is part of the formula, then if you work with your faith, sort of like Catholicism, and die perfected, then you get to go to the highest heaven where you too can create spirit babies. Otherwise, well, maybe you go to kind of a middle place, and if you don't do that at all, then you go to kind of a low place. That is not the atonement. That is not the good news of the gospel. We don't get saved by anything but grace through faith alone, and because of that, we do good works, and we get baptized not because it saves us, not because we use it to put a gun to God's head, but because it represents we, like Jesus, die to our old self, and then we're raised up in newness of life. It's not a time to threaten God.
In 2000, I got baptized, and I stood in the water, and I was so desperate. I couldn't do it anymore, and I stood in the water, and I remember almost shouting at him in my head and saying, I can't do it anymore, and you have promised me that if I do the things you tell me to do, you will take all of this away. You cease to be God if you don't keep up your side of the bargain. And my life changed on that day. He is wonderful because he's handcuffed to his promises. It's up to you.
You put it to him. He's on record. He's got to.
Yeah, he's got to.
perform.
He has to, otherwise he ceases to be God. Otherwise he's not real.
Otherwise, he wouldn't be the cosmic bellhop that he is. What is that all about? Don't get me wrong. God has promises for the believer. By the way, read the book of Ephesians. You want some promises? Duh! You talk about promises, the riches, the inheritance, the goodness that God has for those who are in him. How's about the biggie that we used to be children of the devil and now we're actually adopted and children of God? Read the book of Ephesians, full of it. But we don't get those blessings by telling God he's got to do it, which, by the way, is a huge part of the prosperity gospel these days. Sounds very much like that, where they say, you just tell God that he has to follow through on his promises, and he's got to do it because God promises to deliver goodies to you. No, God will deliver goodies to us if he is so inclined. Just like to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Remember when they got tossed into the furnace? They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, we're going to pray to God that he saves us, and he can, but if he doesn't, that's God's will too. This is Wretched.